Ladies and gentlemen, we're back at it with another episode. When BC for scenery change, I know we hop around the cities left, right, center, but you know that's what we're about. You know, when we can't find a guest, we go to them, man, and we bring the conversation to our audience, and that's what we're all about. But you know, tonight we got a special guest. You know, we have a guest that is immersed into a little bit of Punjabi culture, but his background is different when it comes to his background, ethnicity, and everything like that. But I want to give a warm applause to Conor Kelly, man. It's a pleasure meeting you, and I'm happy to have you on this podcast, man.
Likewise, man. Super excited to be here. Glad you guys can make the trip out, man.
Yeah, no, man. It's it's so funny. So when Mukh told me, he's like, yo, he's like, you heard of Conor Kelly? I'm like, no. He's like, bro, watch his reels. I'm like, okay, let me go watch. And then I'm like, yo, there's no way. I'm like, this guy's a genius. Yeah. I'm like, he's in BC, which is if you look at the culture here, there's a lot of Indians and South Asian descent 100%. That are here, right? So you have immersed yourself into kind of in that culture, but like, okay, if I gotta succeed in that real estate, I gotta have some sort of presence within that community or 100%. Whatever other communities there is. It's not like you predominantly focus on that. So walk us through that. What was like your thought process when you saw like such a big opportunity in this market and how you immersed yourself in that community?
Well, man, I always knew it would be like there was like a virality to it because I hadn't seen anybody else do it. I know there was Mobina in Toronto.
Yeah.
Honest to God, I had no idea she was doing it. Like the first video I posted, everybody was like, Nawab Motors. And I'm like, what the hell is Nawab Motors, right? Yeah. But I had a listing and like it was a tough year, right? Like none of my listings were selling. Everything would sit on the market for 2-3 months. So when I got this listing, these people needed to sell. I was like, I'm just going to throw a Hail Mary. Like, I need this video to go viral. This thing has to sell, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I know how to speak a little bit of Punjabi. Let's try it, right? Just like fully commit, full energy, full everything. And I'm like, this only go one of two ways. Yeah. Either everyone's going to love it or I'm going to be like the most hated guy in Surrey, right? But like I got to throw a Hail Mary, right? So I did it, just went nuts. Like everybody reposted it, probably got like 7 million views. Yeesh. Unfortunately, that house actually didn't sell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I brought them a pretty good offer, but it just wasn't within their financials to take it. But that's basically the backstory behind that. And then the way social media works is once you have your finger on the pulse, you just keep running with it, right? And then it's like everyone I posted after, it's just viral, right? Just going crazy.
No, and that's the cool thing too. Like, a lot of the people like might look into what you said, but like it could go one way or the other. Either go viral or people gonna clown you. But one thing I do want to ask you, like, when you do see a lot of people be like, no, he just clown, he just piggybacking off that culture, or like, oh, he trying to like act a certain way to sell, or like trying to get more virality and stuff like that. Have you faced a lot of that where people are like, nah, like who does he think he is? How you speaking Punjabi, this, that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen a couple videos. I mean, you're always going to get that, right? I mean, I don't know what it is about today where it's like people just automatically assume your intentions are horrible. Man, I know how to speak Punjabi. I'm marketing. Yeah. And that's why I did it.
And you live in Surrey.
Yeah, exactly. And like all my friends are Punjabi, and like that's the culture I grew up in. So I'm like, I know, because anytime I've ever spoken it to somebody, that would like, it's,
wait, hold on. Repeat that again.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I'm like, I already knew it was like a what the fuck kind of thing, right? So I'm like, I bet it'll be the same result if I just do it on video. Right?
Yeah, walk us through that as well, though, man. Like you're born and raised in Surrey, right? So like as you're growing up, you're seeing like, because like when it comes to BC, it's so different from like Ontario area. It's so different. Like even like Brampton and Mississauga, like when I compared it to here, where like the Indian culture is so prominent, it's way different though. Like the way they are. So how did you kind of navigate all that as you're coming up when it comes to dealing real estate? And kind of actually, let's take a step back. How did you start your journey when it comes to real estate itself? Like what brought you to it, and what was your background before that, getting into all this?
I was a plumber for almost a decade, 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, man, I just got really sick of it. I just felt like it was good. I made good money, and I had a couple investment properties, but I found I really had a passion for investing in real estate. Like I found like all my spare time, I was like listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos. And then it got to the point where like I was following these realtors and they'd be talking about investing. I'd be like, that's not right. I'm like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I feel like I know more than this guy, right? Yeah. And then I'd be like, oh, but this guy selling so much real estate, right? I'm like, I bet I could do that too. And I found like at that time, back in 2017, 2018, there was no content on Canadian real estate investing. It was all American. You couldn't find nothing on Canadian real estate. So I'm like, maybe I'll become a realtor and I'll fill the void on Canadian real estate investing content, right? Yeah. But I didn't get my license for 3 more years after that. But then as soon as I got my license, everyone was shitting on TikTok at that time. Really? They were like, oh, it's a dancing app for 17-year-olds.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone like now it's accepted as like a business platform. But at that time, it was a joke, right?
It was.
I'm like, I'm just going to start making some videos on here. Gary V's been saying good things about it, right? And then like my 3rd video, man, went crazy. Got like 100,000 views. Oh, shit. And I was like, and it was literally a video about a property that I owned in Windsor, Ontario. So I'm like, okay, so the plan that I always had is like kind of working already, right? Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to sell homes, but that's a lot of views.
It is, man.
Yeah. Like realtors out here paying tens of thousands of dollars for bus benches. I'm like, this is probably doing better than that,
it's
right?
Free.
And it's free, right? So I'm just going to keep doing this. And then like a month and a half after that, like deals just started rolling in like crazy after that. And then I just kind of claimed that spot as like the TikTok realtor in BC, right? Damn. Yeah. But I didn't actually speak any Punjabi for like
at the time.
2 years, right? I put out content. Like a lot of people know me from my content back then, but the Punjabi thing went so viral that most people know me for that now.
Do you think it has now, like, ever since you started, like you were saying before, like that you just spoke English. Like you didn't really present yourself as someone that spoke or listens to Punjabi. I can understand Punjabi. What do you think the difference between the two once you started shifting your content creation and speaking Punjabi?
Well, that's more like entertainment style, as opposed to education, right? So now, and it builds connection, too, right? But it brings people into the funnel where people now they know me, but then they see the education content, they're like, oh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about too, right? So, but the education style content is still the content that actually sells the real estate, right?
It really does, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the differences between the two, like Punjabi has a lot of letters that just don't even exist in English. You know what I mean? Like
so
you guys got
enunciating it, you're like, God damn.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a JH, there's like a KG, like the T's are like TH a lot of the time, right? So it's really hard for English people to say those letters, right?
No. I'm like, kudos to you, man. Because like it's so funny. Like I grew up, I had an interesting friend circle. Like I had Jesse, my boy. Like he's like he never had a Punjabi friend before me. So I met him in grade 7. I didn't know a lick of English. He didn't know a lick of Punjabi, but somehow we were together. I don't know why, but it made sense. It didn't make any sense, but it made sense for us. And we lived really close to each other. So, and then it's so funny. So then he started coming to my houses, and then we used to play basketball. Then he started eating roti. Then he started eating dal with me all. And then it was just a cool thing to see. And then the reason why I bring this up now is because you probably seen this now. There's such a divide nowadays, man. It is fucking crazy. Like it's actually sad to see, especially given Canada. Man, Canada, like if you actually look at the overall demographic at it, like we're probably one of the most diverse countries out there.
100%.
Like it's probably not even close. And then for me, it just breaks my heart when you see these videos are like, even when you go on some comments on TikTok or IG,
it's crazy
how divided they are.
Yeah,
it's like go back home or do like it's like it's oh man, it's I don't know. It's sad to me, man. It genuinely breaks my heart. So and seeing you like the way you're immersed and like not even how you have kind of meet so many different people and you just kind of have this attitude of like gratitude in a sense. Yeah. You're like, bro, I'm grateful to be in this country and meet different people and doing what I love to do, which is sell real estate and build my portfolio and whatnot. So, walk us through that. Like, why do you see that shift now compared to before? I feel like it wasn't as much. Maybe it was before there was. Now it's just because social media becomes so prominent and now everybody has their voice that can be opinionated and now they're putting it out there.
There's a lot of ways I could take that answer to that question. As specifically to Indians, man, I think it's just like immigration has happened at such a large level, right? That people have really seen the culture change fast. And I think I think it's terrible, dude, to be honest with you, man. Like I've never seen it like actual like hatred and racism to like the level that it's happening on social media right now. And like the way I look at it is like, dude, these people just wanted to come and live here because like they heard Canada's dope, right? They're not doing anything, like it's not them, you know what I mean? Like the government let in 1.2 million people. They just wanted the same chance that everybody else got, right? So no, I don't I agree with that at all. But I think a lot of it too is the media really pushes division by highlighting these things all the time. Like just the fact that you highlight it. Like I remember growing up, you would never look at somebody who is a different skin color and immediately think, oh, they're different than me. That didn't even cross your mind. Right. And like now in the last 10 years, right, it's just like, it's everything. It's in everything now. Right.
And then that's so true. Like, and as I spoke to her before, like I was born here. I was born in Edmonton, and then I moved to India for 10 years. And then when I came back, like my English wasn't good at all. I was like a walking mute. They would say things to me, like I understood it, I just didn't know how to reply back. But I tell you, one of the most genuine people I came across is they never looked at me like as someone that like, oh, he doesn't know how to speak English, let's make fun of him or this. Not once I felt like any type of like, I don't belong here. It was just hard to obviously feel like, oh, I don't fit in. That was more on my side because it was hard to speak the language. So but other than that, man, like everybody I came across, whether they were white, they were Asian, no matter like what descent they were so nice. Like even to this day, I'll never forget my homeroom teacher in grade 8, Wallbauer, one of the nicest teacher I ever came across. She made sure, she's like, if you don't understand anything, she's like, let me know. You come to me, this, that. And even all the students were so helping, right? And then I feel like we need to turn back the clock to go back those times where, yes, and I think one of the things you pointed out was, it's not the people that have come here, it's what the government is allowing, the way they're bringing these people.
Yes.
Like when it comes to certain things they're doing, like even for immigration, for let's say refugee side or asylum seekers and whatnot, there gotta be a plan put forth before they're brought here.
They're just taking the opportunity. And then like anybody would, you know?
Yeah. And then they're just taking the opportunity for when they do come here, what are they gonna do? Sit there, then they're like, oh, they're taking our jobs. But like, taking what jobs though?
Yeah.
Those are jobs that some people are not willing to do, and they are. And that's why you see so many of them.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I want to, kind of, that's the one thing I wanted to do this. Because I'm like, yo, man, there's no such thing as a color when it comes to having conversation and getting along with people and growing in general.
I never saw it like that.
Ever.
And I think Punjabi culture mixes very well with our culture. You know what I mean? There's a lot of similarities, right? So,
and we've been here, like, and not even here, like, if you look at it from the 80s, it's been a long-rooted history, like how long, Sikhs and Hindus, and everybody's been here. Even if you go to Abbotsford, one of the oldest gurdwara, it literally paints out the whole history. The first time they came, and it written in English, Punjabi, and everything. So I encourage people who, no matter who they are, go read about the history and, not be so ignorant of people's skin color, rather be, blissful and, grateful for that you do have these people around you.
Yeah.
To gain the experience that they have from where they come from. So
100%.
I want to get rid of the narrative, man. Again, fuck the divide. And you said the news outlets promote all this stuff to divide people. So be conscious of who you're hating on before you.
It gets clicks, right?
Yeah,
it's at the end of the day, they make their money on ad revenue and stuff like that, right? And it's a hot topic, man.
It is. And why do you think that divide is so much now? Do you think it's just due to the environment Canada's in right now? Just due to the food cost, living expense, and all that. Like, because everybody seems like it's on edge, man. Like, even today, like, I would just mind my business, going slow, like 90. I guess I was honking. I'm like, bro, it's 80 here. Like, why you on with 90? I'm like, chill. Like, for me, I'm mellow. But, like, in general, it's like people be just on edge. I don't know why that is. It's just like,
I think if you tell people they should be mad enough times, they're going to start being mad. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what we see has been happening, right? Like, I don't think the news never says anything positive about anything. It's always highlighting something negative, right? And I'm not saying these issues don't exist.
You do.
But if you just keep being like, be mad about this, be mad about this, be mad about, like, people are going to start being mad about it, right?
Yeah.
And then tying that into, like, let's say real estate. So, you said 2023 you had a little bit of a downturn, right? Correct, right? So why do you think that shift was when you go through, like, these certain stages? It's just due to the fact that, like, the living standards in Vancouver, because the one thing we do here all the time, or like Vancouver is too expensive, or like the BC area in general is just way too expensive. Like, I don't want to go there, I don't want to invest or live here. Do you think it's just due to the fact that how expensive it's getting here?
I think Why why is it getting this
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a multitude of things, man. I think so. Like number one, Vancouver's matured as a city, right? Like, 50 years ago, it was like a small fishing town type of deal, right? Yeah. So I think it's matured as a metropolitan city. And if you go look at like Zurich, Switzerland, or like London, or any of these cities that have been around for longer than Canada, they're like the average cost of a house in like Switzerland is like $2.5 million or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
Like
wow.
Tokyo,
I didn't know that.
Tokyo, Luxembourg, like all these older, more established cities, they're all crazy expensive too.
Oh, wow.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I think, is just government spending. Because when you spend money with no input for spending that money, it causes unnecessary inflation, right? And then that allows the price of assets to get away from the median wages. So I think that's definitely been a big problem. I don't know, probably at least since the early 2000s, that's probably been happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at a chart of Vancouver real estate, it's like, and then 2008 hits and it's like this.
Yeah, it's steady incline.
And that's probably due to government spending, I would say. So
Yeah.
I think it's a multitude of issues, right? And I don't think it's going to get any better, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you about was I'm not fully acclimated with like how the investment side has kind of influxed into in BC area, because obviously Edmonton, Alberta, like you don't see as foreign investors getting into this market. In Alberta, you rarely see it at all. But in BC and like Ontario area, you do. Reason why? Because it's a hotspot for what? Tourism.
Yeah.
Do you think because now I think the government passed a law last year where it restricts foreign investors to invest in actual property? Because I think Canada is only one of the countries that allows foreign investors to actually own a property without actually being the citizens of the country, correct? I don't know if I'm correct on that, but before.
There are some countries that have had it straight out banned. Like I think Australia is another one that's banned it.
I think U.S. to a certain extent, they have like bylaws as well. You can't really own properties to a certain extent if you're not actual citizen or you know someone there that's a citizen, I think.
I think it might be in certain states maybe, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe like California or something like that.
Yeah.
But they banned, I think it was 2023 they banned it.
Yeah.
But before that, they had a foreign buyer's tax, which came in 2016, which was a 20% tax. Now, there might have been some way around that via like opening up corporations and holding companies. I don't really know, right? But I don't think foreign investors have been a big part of the equation since like 2016. But they definitely had a big play in the market because, or somewhat of at least in the luxury market, because the luxury market in West Van never recovered after that foreign buyer's tax ban.
That's true though, because I always saw that. I'm like, because a lot of the investments or like properties that were owned, like you saw a big influx of who, like you saw from a lot of China investors.
Yep.
They had a prominent hold especially when it came to BC, they had a hold on, as you said, to like on the luxury side, like high-end apartments and whatnot. They had like a stronghold over that market.
Yes.
So like imagine like for yourself or like myself or someone who's coming up, who's just finishing the college degree, whatever it is, right? You get a job for $80K and then I maybe want to move to Vancouver, but like these people are bringing in millions. I'm comparing my $80,000 a year.
It's tough.
There's no way to sustain that, and it only makes it more influx of the property keep going up every year.
Yep.
Now you're like, okay, how am I supposed to afford a house? Like I'm making $100K a year, and I need to average. What's the average cost we would say in the lower lands and the higher lands if you would average it out? We think average cost
Like across all the the lower mainland?
Yeah.
Oh man, probably at least like $850K if you were to average it out across the lower mainland.
That's what I mean. Like, how do you sustain yourself with someone who's coming up? How do you sustain that? Like someone who's just finished a college degree, you got $200,000 in your loans that you got to pay off, and you're starting up. You're probably gonna make 70, 60, and work yourself up after a year, 2, 3, to maybe hopefully over 100,000. And even then, that's still not enough to own a house that's 800,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, you gotta like, it's not. I'm not saying it should be like this or this is the right thing, but like, unfortunately, you probably got to move further away, build equity, and then move back when you can. Right. That's kind of what I tried to do. I moved from Surrey to Abbotsford, bought my first condo there. Found out that I actually liked it there, so I just bought my next house in Abbotsford as well. But you either got to move further away or you got to start a business, man. It's going to be really tough to make it in Vancouver. Unless you have a longer time horizon, unless you're like, okay, 10 years type of thing, you could probably, you know what I mean? You could probably get in the market, but if you want to do it in the next 5, like you're going to have to be making a lot of money.
Yeah, like even like we have a good friend Sim. We did a podcast with him in Toronto.
You might know him.
Sim the realtor.
Sim Suman?
Yeah, Sim
I know
Suman.
Sim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had him on the podcast too, and then we were talking off the camera too. He's like, how are you trying to get into real estate and stuff like that? I said this in the podcast too. This guy, we were going out for coffee, just getting coffee, and this guy got a client from a truck that was just stopped beside us waiting for a red light. This guy just got a client right there. I was like, bro, you never stop. He's like, man, the hustle's always got to be there, man. It's tough out here,
The grind is 24/7.
It's 24/7.
100%.
But yeah, like what you're saying, like, eventually, like, with the space that me and Amrit are in, like, we'll eventually have to move to a bigger city. Right. And then what advice would you give to the youngsters who are trying to progress within their career? Right. But they're kind of stuck in their hometown and they're trying to go somewhere else. But now that with all the expenses and stuff, the cost of living, how would you really, go about with that?
My advice is to start a business. And it doesn't apply to everybody.
Yeah.
But for the person who's listening, who it does apply to, I think it'll be helpful for that person. I think you have to start a business. Yeah. I think it'll be very difficult to make it with a 9-to-5 these days. Yeah. And, like you guys know, you started a podcast, right? Like we live in it's very difficult to be average now, right? Yeah. Like if you're a baby boomer, you could work a 9-to-5 and have everything. You could have a brand new current model car. You could have a detached house and a nice metropolitan city. You could have 2 kids. Now you can't do that being average.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
It's harder to be average, but it's easier to be top 1%. Because there's so many more tools available to help you get there.
That is true.
Right? True. Like if I want to learn how to start a YouTube channel or TikTok or whatever, I can literally just search that in YouTube.
Yeah.
Our parents would have to go to a library and search for a book for 30 minutes and rent it out. You know what I mean?
And I think you hit the nail on the coffin. I think it's easier now to become successful given the tools that we have.
Yeah.
Like way easier. Imagine, like now I get stunned by the kids that are like 23, 20s are like doing these different ventures. They're trying new things. And I'm like, bro, when I was 22, I had no idea none of this shit.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No idea. Like this was even existed.
Yeah.
I'm like the fact that people have like in their tip of the hands, I can just search up, like as you said, how to become a YouTuber. Watch a video for 20 minutes. It could give you ideas right then and there.
Yeah.
And that's such a great thing for people now to kind of engage into. But a lot of the time now where people are like, they're distracted by bullshit.
Yeah.
Like all the time. Like this is the devil. this is can be helpful, but it can be the devil itself too. Right? But it's just how do you utilize it? But again, like what you said is a lot of people these days is like they're so distracted by bullshit and the image they can put forth because of social media is so prominent. But like, okay, how do I make myself a certain way to promote myself? But that's not how you're supposed to be utilized.
No.
And then one thing I saw on yours was the best thing you ever did was like quit drinking and doing drugs or whatever it may be, smoking or whatever it is. What would you give advice to the people that are out there that do struggle with this and then that constantly battle with like fitting in? But like for me to fit in, I got to fit in with this crew. But then for me with this crew, it puts me at jeopardy of like drinking or getting bad habits incorporated in my day-to-day lifestyle.
If you feel like you have to fit in, you're in the wrong circle.
Yeah.
Right now you're forcing yourself to basically be somebody who internally you're not.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like if you feel like, oh, well, if I stop drinking, my friends won't hang out with you. Just that thought is already like,
crazy.
You know what I mean? Like that means internally you don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And you're just doing it to fit in. Right. And if you just stop doing it, it takes time, but eventually you'll find the people you connect with. And, it took like, I hustled for probably 3 years without any like close friends. You know what I mean? But then eventually you find your circle of people you connect with, right? That like to do all the same things that you like to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I personally think that quitting drinking, smoking, all that stuff will make your life infinitely better. Some people are like, oh yeah, you can do it in moderation. What's the point, man? I don't know.
Bullshit, man.
There's no point.
It doesn't do anything for you.
It doesn't.
You know what I mean? It's like all it does, I guess, is just like lower your guard. Mm-hmm. So like you care less about the things you say and you have more self-confidence. But it's like you can just give yourself more self-confidence to begin with by like going to the gym and like.
It's so true though. It's like if you, let's say you get high today. Guess what? You're going to get up tomorrow. The problem's still going to be sitting right in your face.
Yeah.
They didn't disappear.
No. Yeah, that's true.
Right?
So, I mean, that's the advice I give to every new realtor is like, dude, if you just like the problem is everybody's already, like, just like you said, there's so many distractions and all this bullshit, right?
Yeah.
If you just remove all of the bullshit, there's no bullshit left, right?
No,
like all there is to do is the stuff that actually progresses your life forward, right? So like
so
simple
true.
things like scrolling through your phone, drinking, smoking weed, all this stuff is just bullshit. And if you remove it, you're already a successful person.
Yep.
It's just all the things you know you shouldn't be doing that you're consistently doing is like impeding you from being the successful person that you already are, right?
That's the thing is like not a lot of people are willing to let that go.
No.
Because then their fear is like, oh, I'm going to be left alone. I'm not going to have that circle again. You know, they have that comfort, like have so many people around them, but just for the sake of just like all these distractions, right? It's just smoking, you know, drinking and all that shit. And then like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you know well enough too, Amrit, like when you're out of that space, you're by yourself. Like you're just literally, you don't have anybody that you can talk to besides if they wanted to be like, hey, you want to go hang out, get a drink or something like that.
No,
but like
fuck,
how many,
I don't.
but like you'll find out very quick, like how many people are actually there that are actually doing shit with their life. They're not distracted by all this stuff. And
100%.
heck, man, I think that's the reason. I mean, that's the one thing I personally like. This is kind of going to the mental health of men's side is like not a lot of men are really focusing on themselves.
No.
And they're kind of like postponing their progression within, you know, just building themselves and instead of like entertaining with these type of people or just, you know, with the influence that they have.
100%.
But what do you think you should be focusing on? Like what should young men should be focusing on rather than just, you know, these sorts of entertainment?
Like early age too. Like
yeah.
Because that's when you get the development period, you know.
Because it's like, I mean, there's a saying, it's like, okay, you can be 30 and undeveloped, right? You can have a lack of learning and all that stuff. Or, 30 undeveloped, you can have all the social life you can have. You know, you have friends here, your friends there, you can go out partying and stuff. Or you can be 30, you can be well-skilled, right? You'll have things going for you, but you might not have as many friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. I think, like, you should, maybe I've not used the word you should, I would recommend that you
no, it's true. Because like
consume content from people you want to become and indoctrinate yourself into their beliefs, right? If somebody is giving you advice but you wouldn't want to be like them, then I wouldn't take that advice, basically, right? Like I'm basically the sum of all the content creators that I consumed for years before I got my real estate license, right?
Yeah. It's so true. I think what you said, like for us, like me and him, we love watching PBD. Like I think it's like even for my insurance, when I started my company, and then he was like one of the person that I'm like, you know what, like he made it in life because of that. Yeah. And then another thing he's good at is storytelling. Like a lot of people don't understand is you gotta learn and educate yourself to a point where like intellectually and the way you articulate yourself speaks for itself. When you have that, I'm telling you, so many more doors that open up to you. Imagine if I come to you like yo, like what's good? Like if I'm talking to you like that, you're not gonna take me serious. But like, bro, this guy's not serious. Imagine if I came up to you like that, I'm like, yo, bro, like I wanna buy a property and shit. Like, yo, be like, I got 200, like this, that, yo, like can you hook me up? Be like, get the fuck out of here.
I'm pretty sure you do with being serious.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's like no one's gonna
copy you.
Yeah. You don't copy shit. So, you know, like people don't realize how important that is, working on your personal skills. And you probably saw that for yourself as you put yourself in position, especially when in real estate, you probably met so many people in different fields that are so successful. And you probably saw them, how they kind of, you know, put themselves in a position to succeed.
They become, if you want to have influence, you have to be an authority in like whatever it is that you do, right? So like if I want to talk about investing in real estate, I should know more than 99% of people about that topic. Otherwise, why would people listen to me if I'm just going to say like the normal shit that everybody already knows, right? So in order for me to be an authority in that space, I got to consume hours of content and like not just learn it, but also understand it, right? Because those two things are a little bit different, right? So that's the thing with the social media route is like today you have a lot of people putting out content that I don't think necessarily helps society, to be honest with you. Like,
They're just there for the clicks and that's it.
yeah, you know what I mean? So I don't know what's going to happen with that type of content in the future, because like I feel like everything you do should be from a standpoint of like good.
It should be, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like if you want to make money, well, you only make money by providing value, right? Like that money has to come out of somebody's pocket, right?
It's so true. Like even let's look at content creation in January 2024. I never seen such high figures for content creation, how much they're getting paid. And for what? Bullshit. They saw live stream, like, doing the most fucked up shit. Like, going to someone who's eating dinner, like, saying random shit, them screaming in the ears. Yeah. And somehow they're making millions a year. And I'm like, what are we promoting as a community in the world? What are we doing today?
I don't know where that leads, though, because it's
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Do you think they get paid by people advertising on those videos?
It's
right.
Interesting.
It's the platforms too, though, because like now there's so many different. There's Kick, there's Twitch, like they have different guidelines, right? Now there's certain platforms that like we're fighting against the system, so that's where like platforms like Kick and whatnot they come in place where like, no, you have freedom of speech, you can do certain things, but like there was this one case recently. There's a streamer from US. He goes to different countries, like mocking their culture and like mocking the history or whatever it is. So he went in Japan. They hunted this guy with a machete.
Really?
On live stream, this guy's getting chased down. And he would not shut off his stream. And I'm like, bro.
This isn't a joke anymore, man.
Yeah, like what are we doing?
Yeah.
And people are like, his comment section are going crazy. They're giving him money. I'm like,
that's crazy, man.
Bro, what kind of world we live? What kind of platforms are promoting this type of engagement that allows them to get away with pretty much like assault, abuse, mockery of people's culture? And Japan is not a culture that you want to mess around with.
No.
Well, I think it's like the law of polarity is like one of the universal laws. There's two sides to everything, right? So it's like a lot of people look at social media and they think only the negative, right? Or only the positive, right? There's a good and bad to social media.
There is.
Just the majority of people use it for bad, right? They use it from like a mind-numbing, like dopamine type of sense. But on the other side of that coin is like you can use it to build a really successful business too.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, you know one thing, I struggle with this. I'm not gonna lie. I tell people like, you know, when it comes to like having this addiction on your phone, like I'm way better now. 10 times better. Like now if I were to like scrolling on my phone, I'm like, yo, go do the fucking edit. You haven't done it. I'm like, okay, I did the edit. I feel good now. Right? So, but a lot of people, it's hard for them to break that chain. It is. It's hard to put this thing down and just be by themselves. It is hard, man. It is. Like I've been there where like I went to bed at 11. I looked at my thing. It's 2 a.m. I'm like, yo, ain't no way. I spent 3 hours on this shit.
Yeah.
Then it's like, how do you say? What would you say? Some things you should do to break away from that. Especially because it's so hard.
I'm pretty bad at it too, to be honest,
especially when
man.
you're creating content too.
Yeah.
You're just like, because you're also doing research, but at the same time, that shit comes, in between. There's like source of entertainment too.
It takes you away.
It takes you away.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at it too, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not the best at that. I get sucked into a wormhole of like watching stupid shit for an hour or two, right? But it's, I think, man, a lot of people just don't have a mission, right? They don't have like a North Star of like, I want to get here, right? And I think if you have that, like, you can get temporarily pulled away from the mission and like drown in like stupid content for 2 hours. But like, if you have that, like eventually you're going to get pulled back into like, okay, I need to do this, that, and the other to get there, right?
Yeah.
I went for a long time I had a North Star, but it just wasn't the right one, right? And then when I changed it, like, everything changed. My whole life got better. My relationships got better. I was making more money. I felt more fulfilled. So I think a lot of people are missing that from their lives, right?
That's true.
They're just kind of like floating.
Exactly. I think it's finding sense of purpose. And I think this kind of ties back perfectly what you said. Like you were a plumber for like 9 years. And then, you're like, this doesn't speak to me. On my portfolio side or investment side, this speaks to me.
100%.
Like that purpose doesn't come over. That took you 9 years.
Yep.
It didn't take you 1 or 2 years. Like, boom, I got it. Like, I'm in real estate. I'm 24. I'm making millions. That's what's promoted nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? No. Like, all on this platform, we're all 30. It took us a certain amount of time to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Like, 1, 2, 3 years is literally nothing. When people think it's like, it's a lot of work, 3 years, I'm telling you, it will fly by if you put your head down and find your real purpose and that has some meaning to what you're doing.
Yep.
It will change your life forever. So How do you navigate that though? Like, let's say you're in real estate and you know real estate's up and down.
Mm-hmm.
1 year, you know, you're way up here. You're like, yo, I just made 200,000-300,000 this year. But like now you're like, fuck, man, I'm just sitting on these properties and not selling.
Yeah.
What goes to your head when that when that happens?
Bro, it's so emotional, man. It's very taxing, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
that's why starting a business is hard.
Yeah.
It's people can't deal with the mental side of it, right? Like when I was doing plumbing, it was very easy to show up and work hard physically for 10 hours, right? The emotional side of things, the up and downs, the mental side is very difficult. It's very scary. It's the unknowing of things is very difficult. But I think the main thing, bro, is people lack the perspective. Like you were saying, 3 years is a short period of time. Even 10 years.
Yeah.
Let's say you start a business at 25, right? And it takes you to 35 to be making $500,000, all right? Which is very doable, probably even within like 5 years, right? But let's say it takes 10. Okay, now you're 35 years old, making a top 1% income, and you're probably going to be alive for another 50 years, dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, people don't realize that.
Who cares if it takes 10 years, dude?
35 is nothing.
You know what I mean? Now it's like you're going to have the sickest life ever for the next 50 years. You know what I mean? And you could work on your own schedule. You could work on the things you want to work on. You could work however long you want to work. You can travel. You can spend your money on like now life gets good after that 10 years,
10
right?
years, yeah. Also, since we're talking about with progression and stuff, like before starting, before this, I was researching. I was like, okay, let me see how many real estate agents are there in Vancouver. And I was like, fuck, there's 30,000. There's 30,000 real estate agents. And I'm like, because I think I also heard on PBD, that's more in the States, but they're like, people get into real estate just for the sake of just for the title, but actually they don't really do shit at all. Like, I'm not saying every one of them, they're actually
No,
good.
you're right.
People out there actually putting in work and stuff, but people just go into it just for the sake of title and attention grab on social media. So they'll pay for social media. They'll do all these, the things to build their business, but they're not providing anything really educational in that sense, like we were talking about before. And then you'll see like all these people kind of drifting away from real estate then because they can't handle the pressure.
That's why the turnaround ratio is so high. Like if you look from within the 1 year, like what was it? They said 90% tend to like, there's 90% like every year, there's a new people of influx of coming again. Within 1 year, people tend to like 90 to 80%, they say they just fade away. There's another influx of 80% that comes in.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like in a year, man, people are willing to quit. A year.
Yeah.
The fuck is a year? It's nothing.
So then how do you go about with that then? And just knowing like, holy shit, there's so many fucking agents. Man, they're failing. How I'm gonna make this work,
dude? I think everybody like applies the statistic to real estate specifically.
Yeah,
but this is like a universal thing. 90-10 applies across every industry. So if you go look at plumbing companies, only 10% of them are making like a decent living, and then the other 90 are probably just paying bills or even losing money, right? Or not growing, or they're just like sole proprietorships type of deal, right? Yeah. If you want to be successful in any field, doesn't matter what it is, you're going to have a level of skill and influence that's in the top 10%, no matter what it is. There is no saturation. Like this is a word that
true.
It's saturated. It's not saturated, dude. You just have to be better than 90% of people in whatever it is that you're doing. Like doesn't matter what it is, right? Man. And I think when it comes to social media, like where people get it wrong, it's like, you can make videos and get all these views, but views don't equal influence. And if you don't have influence over the viewer, right, you have to influence somebody to make them give you their money, right? So if you don't have some type of influence over the actions that they take, they're not going to buy anything with you, right? So it's like if you're putting out like prank videos and stuff, right, are people really going to be like, oh yeah, buy my course, and like probably not going to happen, right? So there has to be a good mix. If I just put out Punjabi videos, I probably wouldn't sell. Like people like them, and people are like, that's dope, right? Entertaining. But at the same time, people have to understand, like, that I know what I'm doing, and I can talk about certain segments of the market, and I think this is a good buy, and you might want to sell this if you have this, and they listen to me because, I know what I'm talking about type of thing. Then I would have a certain level of influence over people, right?
Do you ever come across buyers and, for example, this house is not going to pan out well for them in the future? like, you know what, like, given what he has provided, like, hey, there's so much money, X amount of money, this is what I'm doing, but I'm going to buy no matter what. I picked up loans from my cousin and the other third party, and I put up the down payment. Do you ever come across clients where you're like, you know what, like, hey, man, this is not good for you. Like, you shouldn't buy this property given, like, everything that you have. Do you ever?
All the time.
Because a lot of people, I feel like, don't have that empathy and humility to be like, yo, walk away from a deal just to get the deal done. Be like, you know what, I got my deal done and I'm good. I don't care for what he goes to.
All the time. I
Yeah.
tell people, but I was very shocked when I became a realtor. 90%, probably more than 90% of the time, people don't actually want your opinion. They just want their own opinion validated. Right?
Okay.
So like, I thought that I was going to do all this research on investing in real estate, and I was going to like, I'm going to know more than everybody.
Stop, don't play with me.
I'm going to be like, that's the property. People will be like, all right, that's what Kelly says, that property. It's not what happens, man. Like the amount of properties I've sold where I've told somebody, I don't think it's a good buy, I would actually buy that one. And they're like, well, we like this one. All right, well, I told you the pros and cons of that one, right? And then they end up getting that one.
Yeah.
Right? It happens a lot, man.
Yeah.
So most of the time, it's just people they already made up their mind, and they just want you to be like, yes, that's the sickest one ever. Right?
So what do you recommend, like, when, you know, like, people are trying to purchase their first home? Like, what would you recommend them, what they should look for, you know, what they should look out for purchasing the first property?
Yeah, take it back to you. You say you buy your first property in Windsor. Walk us through that process, how that came while you were doing a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Walk us through that, man.
Because a lot of people are in the same boat too, right? They're trying to, you know, they're trying to figure out, like, okay, they don't want to do a 9-to-5 anymore.
Yeah.
But then you're trying to shift into a different industry or whatever they want to do. But, like, how do you really transition to that then?
How do you transition? Man, I would say get some money in the bank, right? Open up a line of credit while you still have your income, and then quit cold turkey. Cut the lifeline, right? Burn the boats, no retreat. Because like humans don't do anything unless it's out of necessity, right? Like, I don't know about you guys. If I ever had like a homework assignment in high school, I'd literally wait till the night before it's due and then just like crank it out in 2 hours. Right?
That is
you know what I mean? So it's like, it's the same thing with business, right? Like you're probably not going to go do the things you need to do. And you're like, if I don't do this, then I'm screwed. Right. So you cut that lifeline, and then that's like, you're not going to fail if you just put in the work, right? At the end of the day. But buying that first property in Windsor, that's the other thing, man, is like, you don't have to own real estate in Vancouver. You don't. Like, rent here and get your foot in the market in a different market that's more affordable, and then eventually pull the equity out of that, and then you can buy in Vancouver in like 5 years or whatever, right? But, you know, I found Windsor at that time had a really bad name.
It did.
Because when the auto industry went belly up in 2008, that economy there is heavily tied to the auto industry.
It is.
And their vacancy rates went to like 16%. It was like the highest in the country. But what people didn't know about Windsor that I found out at that time was that their economy was changing. So they were doing massive renovations to the university. They were building another bridge from Windsor to Detroit. They were doing like renovations within the city. They were they were bringing over a lot of tech students. And even now, they're opening up an EV battery plant in that market. So I still think Windsor is a good place, because the job allocation there has been changing. And it was... Oh, God.
Given where it is,
so basically, like the house I bought was $150K at that time. Like
crazy.
Dirt cheap.
150, bro.
150K. So I was just like, how am I going to, like, dude, even if this thing is vacant, it costs less than a car payment. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm just going to buy it and see what happens. And it literally went up double in like 3 years. And I was like, I should have bought 5. Right? It's how it always works out. But I ended up selling that one, and then I bought my place in Abbotsford.
That's so smart, man. And I think that's a key takeaway from this conversation, because we're from Edmonton. You were there recently. How long were you there?
I was only there for 3 days.
3 days, right? But nevertheless, you saw like the difference between the markets. And then we spoke about before, it's like 10 times different, like what you can get here comparative to in Edmonton. And I think it hits the nail on the coffin. It's like, listen, you don't have to get property here.
No.
You go down to these other communities all around Canada where there's potential. You have to keep, and also people don't let it keep up with what's happening in the politic world. As weird as that sounds, you have to. Because like these governments are constantly changing their buy rules, especially given our immigration policies, this, that. A lot of these small towns got such a big potential, man. Like even in Lloyd, I have a condo in Lloyd. People like Lloyd, fuck you doing Lloyd? It's money there. Small towns have money. I don't know how. I tell people you can get I bought that townhouse for $200,000. It goes for rent for $1,800 a month. Mortgage is $1,000. I'm making $800 a day.
Yeah, you'd need something catastrophic to happen. To lose
Yeah. Unless like the freaking I don't know, like
especially when people are moving from Toronto and Vancouver into these cities that are, underrated. Like Edmonton, man, I'm out of fucking BC place, Ontario place, and I'm saying like, okay, we gotta start looking at opportunities here because this is gonna blow up here. But
100%, I think Edmonton probably has a good 18-month runway ahead of it. And
I think actually, I'll tell you the truth, Edmonton still like 5 to 10 years next year is still on the uprise. Because the reason why people still look down on Edmonton's market to a certain extent, especially the people here. Because I talked to certain investors here, they're like, no, Edmonton's not appealing.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't get it. Why? Because I'm like, okay, even like now the number of costs, like before it was like crazy, bro. It was just crazy. The house prices were crazy. But even if, let's say, as you said, finding small opportunities in these market is huge. Because now, let's say if you bought a lot here, like a 32 pocket here, what does it go for average? Like Edmonton, you can get it for probably like 230.
Yeah, it's probably like 650 here.
Yeah, 400,000 difference.
Yeah,
that's your build of your house in Edmonton.
Yeah.
You sell that for, so now all put together, you're looking at 230 plus your 400. You're looking at about 650, let's say on the tops, on the higher end side.
Yep.
If you're building like an actual proper house to build for, but you can probably get it less than that. But you sell that for probably like 697, no problem. That's your 50,000.
Yeah.
And the turnaround is Edmonton is right now probably 7 to 8 months.
Yeah.
So you're telling me you made 50,000 in 8 months, and now. That's the one thing that I struggled with. Tell you the truth, I was weak. I was a bitch. I didn't have the balls to fucking put that payment down. Yeah. That 50,000 that was required for that property.
Yeah,
I was just too scared.
It's always scary, man. It'll never not be scary. That's what people don't understand. It's like they think, oh, that's like interest rates will come down and like the price and everything will line up. We're like it's completely 100% comfortable, the right move, and it's like it's always going to be scary, man.
Yeah. And then, well, I guess we're talking the pros of it. Let's talk about the cons.
What? There's property?
not really in sense. Oh, not really con, I would say, but more of the doubt side of things is like, okay, when you're dealing with loans and line of credit, it's like, holy crap, man, I'm gonna go into debt.
Yeah.
Like on a property that I'm taking a risk on, heck, I don't even know if I'm gonna find a tenant. I'm gonna find someone that's gonna be able to rent this thing. So then there's also like how we were saying before, it's just like, okay, this property might be vacant. Like, how am I gonna afford this stuff? Especially when you're not making much, you're taking a risk.
Yep.
And then it's just like, how do I figure this out?
I just look at everything from like a worst case scenario basis, right? If I'm okay with the worst case scenario, then it makes sense, right? Yeah. If the worst case scenario is you can't find a tenant and you have to fork up $1,400 a month mortgage payment, how long can you do that for?
Yeah.
Right? And that's the same way I looked at Windsor, and then luckily I found the tenant right away type of deal. But I mean, there's a lot of cons to owning real estate, but I think like one of the biggest benefits is like we're in a highly inflationary economy. And when you're in a highly inflationary economy, because the debt that you have on that property is denominated in Canadian dollars, when the value of the dollar decreases, so does the value of the debt, right? So just having debt is not always, but typically a good thing, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's how, what's his name? Poor Dad, Rich Dad.
Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Good debt, bad debt.
Yeah.
He's like, what's a good debt? What's a bad? He's like, good debt. He's like, as you said, having loans that you can kind of, because like property itself, it'll never depreciate. But like, okay, if I bought it for 4, I'm gonna sell it for 2. When does that ever happen?
Yeah.
Ever.
The thing with Canadian real estate is like, if you actually look at the statistics over the last like 20 years, Canadian real estate doesn't actually go up in value. It's the Canadian dollar that's been dropping. But the benefit of that is because your dollars that are invested in the property are leveraged 5x. It still makes sense. And because the debt that you have is also getting devalued every year, it makes sense, right? Like, and as an example, just to like conceptualize this, when I bought my condo in Abbotsford, the mortgage payment was $1,000. That was a big mortgage payment for me at the time. Yeah. Right? 5 years later, right, that place rented for like $2,000 a month. And my mortgage payment was still $1,000, right? That's not necessarily like rents going up, and that's just the value of the dollar going down, right? So like 5 years from now, your mortgage payment, because of inflation, is probably going to look pretty cheap.
Yeah. And then so like, since we were talking about interest rates before. You know, people were getting scared of interest rates. They're like, oh, you know what? I'll just get it when it's at 3%, 4%, whatever it is. So then what do you tell your clients with in regards to that? Like, okay, you know, look at it more investment side. If you're more concerned about the interest rate, maybe just get a lower year term, right? Just get it for 2 years, 3 years. Eventually the market's going to go down. You can refinance again. You can use, you know, you can use a HELOC, right? Use equity again and just get a lower interest rate.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's all possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would err, like the most likely thing that's going to happen is, interest rates are going to go down.
Yeah.
Right? Who really knows? But like, if you actually look at inflation, the way we used to calculate it in 1980, because the U.S. changed the way that they calculated CPI in the 80s, and then they changed it again in the 90s. Right. So that's why they changed it. So that's why our inflation read at 8%. That was our highest reading. Yet everything has gone up like 3 or 4x.
See, that's what I don't understand. I'm like, how the house is at all-time high, the inflation is all-time high. It doesn't make any sense,
right? But if you actually go look at the way we used to calculate inflation in the 80s, inflation was actually between like 12 and 18%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you're getting a loan today at 5%, you're still getting a loan at like negative 8% interest rates. The rates are still real negative rates, right? Because dude, inflation is not 2%, bro. Like everybody knows this. like everyone knows this, dude. This isn't a secret, you know.
Crazy. Yeah. And you know, one thing I wanted to touch upon was just like investment side when it comes to giving tips and whatnot. Because, you know, a lot of people don't understand the full cost of like getting the property where you are. Because where I made my first mistake was getting that townhouse was fucking condos fees, bro.
Oh,
yeah.
The person that was overlooking it, the company, they went bankrupt. Another one came in, just started charging $500 a month. I'm like, huh? Excuse me? That's my profit margin. What do you mean?
That's crazy.
And that just killed me. So, you know, what are the tricks and stuff like that you can tips that you can give out to the audience out there that are looking into getting a small like property, apartment, condo, like townhouse, because that's where you start to see these condos fees come in, and like how to avoid that and what to look for when it comes to that type of stuff.
You never know why a condo fee is the way it is until you actually look at the strata docs. If I were to blanket statement the whole thing, I would say don't buy condos that are bigger than like 950 square feet, because the way they calculate a strata fee is on how big is your unit. You'll get a proportional percentage of the overall strata fee based on the size of your unit. So if your unit is like 20% bigger than all of the rest of the units in the building, you're going to unnecessarily be paying a big strata fee, right? But just because a strata fee is high doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, because these are maintenance fees. Like if you go get a detached home, you're paying a strata fee, right? You're just not paying it month by month. You're going to pay nothing, and then you're going to change a dishwasher 6 months from now. That's your strata fee, right?
That's true.
So in a condo, you're just like preemptively paying it every month. Yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It also takes a lot of headache off you. You don't have to worry about like somebody cutting the grass, or the roof is covered. You don't have to hire the contractors, oversee it. There are problems when stratas misrun the contingency fund, and you will see that in like a 1990s condo where the strata fee is $700 a month. There's no contingency, and they have like major repairs coming up. Then it's a problem, right? But a high strata fee isn't always necessarily a bad thing. And a low strata fee could actually be a bad thing as well, because they could be underfunding the contingency, right? So I wouldn't necessarily be like, I'm only buying a place with less than $300 a month strata fee, because that could actually be a bad thing depending on the building, right?
I'm curious. Since this is something that I really wanted to ask, and because like I'm trying to get into more of the US space for real estate investment. So I don't know, what advice would you give in regards to like how to get into that, especially when you're in a different country?
What do you mean use space?
So like as in investment purposes, like real estate?
Yeah.
Because like they have a whole different, I guess it depends on the state. Like I have cousins in Indianapolis. Their market is booming because everybody from Cali, from East Coast are...
It's a cash flow market.
Yeah. So then us being Canadian residents, how do you get into that space of like starting to invest into properties, purchasing properties in a whole different country?
You only need a couple things. You just need a realtor you trust, and I would get a referral from another investor in that area.
Okay.
Right, which you can find on YouTube, biggerpockets.com, like all these online sources. And then you get a lender who doesn't know the realtor, So they're separate parties, right? That way they can each confirm if the other is doing their job properly, right? Okay. And then you'd get an inspector who also doesn't know the realtor, right? So you have 3 separate parties that are all referrals from somebody who all don't know each other. That way they can almost kind of vet each other's actions. Yeah. Right. And then you'd know, like, okay, the realtor is good because of this person, and then the mortgage broker is good because of this person, and then I can confirm the property exists and it's in good standing because of the inspector.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah, I never actually thought about even the thought process of investing outside of Canada. It never came to my mind. It's like, because like, I mean, there's huge opportunities out there though. Because like, if you need, like my cousin live in Frisco in Texas, in the Arlington area. It's crazy the influx of, like, obviously now with Teslas, like he's building out a whole freaking communities out there. Elon Musk, he's doing some crazy shit down there, but it's crazy like what you can actually get down there.
Yeah, it's
like,
nuts.
And if you actually look at the demographic of it, where is it? It's in the desert, man. Yep. It's in the desert. Look at Vegas. It's in the desert. Like, every time I go, it's getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, how the fuck is this water supply here consistently with so many people moving in? And now they put this big-ass sphere here. I'm like, how are they supplying? And then they want to build more stadiums. I'm like, bro, it just...
It's mind-boggling, man. I thought the same thing when I went there. I don't know where they're getting the water for all this from.
Yeah. It's insane, man. But how do you, the one thing I want to touch upon, last thing, how do you compare it to the U.S. market compared to Canada? Because a lot of people be like, oh man, U.S. is such a better market to go invest in. Canada's such a shitty place to invest in. Because it is a hoax such as this, but like, oh, it's not a good place to invest in. People say that, especially people that live here.
I think the U.S. has way more opportunity. It's also a lot riskier. Right? So like here in Vancouver, it's very tough to buy the wrong property. Like, for example, for the last 30 years, you could have been a complete moron, bought anything, anywhere for any price, and in 5 years made like 500% return on your money.
Crazy. Yeah.
In the States, if you buy a property in the wrong area, like, that's it, you're done.
That's actually true, you know.
You know what I mean?
You have that whole, that's happening with tenants that are just camping in their...
They have squatters.
Squatters, yeah.
There's also neighborhoods that are just straight up war zones, like stuff like that, right? So insane. We don't have any of that here.
We don't, actually,
like,
that's so true.
Like the worst, aside from like East Hastings, like the worst neighborhood is like, you know, a C+ level neighborhood in most states.
It's so true, you know.
And like, because we're so supply constrained, like the prices would have to go up eventually, right? Like, you're very, like, for example, Calgary, like if you buy at the wrong time in the cycle, you could be holding that bag for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? That just happened.
It does.
That doesn't happen in Vancouver because developers stop building and then there's literally nothing to buy.
In the market,
right? Like in Calgary, you can just be like, all right, we're going to build 500 townhomes right there.
Right there. Yeah, it's so true. Right? There's so much vast land to build on.
You know what I mean? You can't do that in Vancouver. You have to convince 8 people who all live beside each other to move, knock their houses down, then go through like a 2-year-long process to like actually build it. So it's very hard to bring supply to market. It's very supply constrained. And because we're a debt-based economy where inflation is baked in, the cost of everything just naturally gets pushed up because of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I mean, that's beautifully said in regards to, you know, I wanted a more educational type of thing from you because, like, you know, obviously I didn't want that. Like, obviously it's cool to see your videos that you do with the cultural side of it, but I wanted to get a more educational side. Someone who's from Vancouver, you know, this economy or this side of the area, because we're from Alberta, so we don't know. We only think it's so expensive. It's so expensive. My sister, they married. She's married now. They live in Abbotsford.
Oh yeah. So do I.
Yeah. So I love Abbotsford because my whole family lives
nice,
there.
Man.
I come there all the time as much as I can. So, but you know, so it's kind of cool to hear your perspective and understanding the markets and what you can do, the small things, some of the stuff I didn't even know about it when it comes to like inflation rates and like even when it comes to the condo fees and whatnot. So it's cool to see, man. And thank you for coming out, man. I genuinely taking the time out of your day for coming out. But you know, usually we end our segments with different things. So you know, we usually ask our guests to be like, okay, what do you leave one message out to the audience that you want to give out? But you know,
especially to the youngins too.
Yeah, because like now it's like because we are in the point where like we're all 30 here on this panel, right? Yeah. And then there's a lot of kids that are coming up and they get lost often by the shining object a lot of times.
Yeah, man. I would just say start a business. You're gonna be a lot more fulfilled in life. Because I could give you $20 million right now. It'll be dope for a little bit, but sooner or later you're gonna need some type of purpose. You're gonna need some type of North Star.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like people who run businesses are always moving on to the, okay, I conquered that, next thing, right? Like PBD was an insurance agent. He built that business. He sold it. Then he started the podcast and he's on to this. And like the way I see him, he might even become a politician.
Yeah,
right? Just
the way,
like the space
the way he
he's in.
speaks.
the way he speaks and the way he wants to do it in Fotodale, he's like, he said he wants to get into it. I think I watched his recent episode. He wants to get into politics because he kept on saying, the politics scenes will get better. He's like, we'll make it better. I'm like, what do you mean we'll make it better? Like, what do you mean we? Who's we?
He seems like he'd because his communication is so good, right?
Yeah.
So I would just say get into business, and that way you're constantly like striving and working towards things, and that'll make you feel fulfilled and happy in life, not necessarily just having money. You know what I mean?
That's perfectly said.
Yeah.
It's the value that's on that 20 million. How do you get it?
Yeah.
Did you earn it or did you receive it?
Exactly.
So, and that's what it comes down to. There's two different paths, and one is better than the other, and that people, I think, 9 out of 10 times should work their way up to even the 40, 50, 60. Like, even if you, like, make $1 million, bro, you're in the 1% of Canada, all over the, and even USA.
Yeah.
You're making millions in today's market, man. Hey.
100%.
You made it in life. So, man, thank you for coming on,
Appreciate
man.
it,
Thank you, bro.
So,
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate the talks that we have. Maybe you come down to Edmonton next time.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I'll hit you guys up when I'm in town next.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate y'all, boys and ladies. Everybody, leave your thoughts. And, maybe you could do a collab next time you're in Edmonton.
Yes, sir, man.
Definitely.
100%.
All right, guys. Thank you. See you next one.
Peace.